One big question that I want to answer in this video: can you actually build a real company with real company culture in a flexible office space? And this question is something that I know has haunted quite a few founders who have thought about upgrading to a flexible office space or who thought about taking up a flexible office space. And I can understand why they would have this concern, because one, in a co-working space, there are multiple other people come in. Where is your identity? Where is your company's identity with respect to that physical space, right? Your employees are not brushing shoulders with other people from other companies than brushing shoulders with your own team members. They might move around the space, not be inside your office. And in fact, I had one founder literally ask me, right, what if my employee is sitting outside and working? How do I make them part of my team, my company, right? So these are some of the apprehensions or questions that I have kind of come across, and I've tried to address it in my various conversations with various founders. And what I've seen after helping over 100 plus startups across Bangalore, Hyderabad, Chennai, Gurgaon, Mumbai, Pune take up flex office space, we seem to be attaching too much to a physical space and company culture, right? If company culture was attached to bricks and cement and concrete, then what are we humans doing as part of the company, right? So culture, in the simplest definition that you've now probably heard, is like culture is what the team does when nobody is noticing, right? So what are the rituals? What are the practices? How do they communicate with each other? How do they resolve conflicts? How do they reward each other? How do they collaborate? How do they come together at the time of a need, right? This is what a company culture is, right? And it is more connected to the people in the team and their behaviors that are typically not documented, rather than determined by the walls around the team, right? Now, in fact, I'll counter argue that at flexible office spaces and managed office spaces, you can actually take that the space as an advantageous position to build a better company culture than you would be able to build it in a conventional office space. And I'll talk about that a little later in this video, right? So now coming back, with or without flex, how do you build company culture, right? You would build it with ritual. You would start off with onboarding of a new employee, tell them about the practices within the company. What do you respect? What do you honor? What do you look down upon, right? What is good behavior? What is bad behavior? And you as a leader, if you're the founder of the company, or you are a senior person in the company, you show them by leading by example, right? Are you friendly with team members? Are you open to hearing feedback from people? Are you open to kind of getting inputs from everybody else, right? So how do you behave? How do you act? You demonstrate it, right? And that's when culture gets cemented along the way, and that's when team members start to imbibe that culture when you go across. So culture is going to get built irrespective of how do you physically operate as a team, right? Without the building into equation. So you can still build culture. There are hybrid teams, there are remote teams that are known for their cultures, right? So there are, let's say, GitHub as an example, or let's take Atlassian as an example. These are living examples of, or even Zoho, closer to our home. These are big examples of companies that have been remote first, that have employee flexibility first in terms of their workplace, but have still managed to build enviable work culture. So that in itself is a proof point that the physical space and culture don't have to be correlated or tied into each other a lot. It's easier to build employee culture or company culture when you're physically together. That I will give you, right? It's lot more easier to build company culture, strong company culture, when you're physically together, because obviously the emulation, the role model examples, and the communications are much more than just Slack messages and Google Meets and Teams calls, right? You chat over other things, you exchange your views, you exchange your apprehensions, right? You talk across the hierarchy, you talk across teams. Those are things that are possible, much more possible when you have the physical space together, right? So yes, so now coming to the point that I said earlier, that you can actually build a much better company culture in a co-working space or a managed office space than your 20-seater, 40-seater office that you build in a small building, is because in a co-working space or a flexible office space, you have a lot of those casual seating spaces, right? You've got the coffee pantry, you've got the cafeteria, you've got a game room, you probably have a foosball table, and you have meeting rooms, you have a lot of casual seating area in the space, right? Where people lose their position in the company, they drift away from their day-to-day responsibilities and talk freely with other team members, right? So it kind of gives the opportunity to have more freewheeling conversations. I've seen people are more comfortable opening up in such casual settings than in a meeting room. You take them on a one-on-one discussion, probably your junior team member is not going to open up much, but you have a cup of coffee with them, or you go on a lunch, do a lunch with them together and have this discussion. Probably the atmosphere is going to free up their thoughts and free up their it's going to make it lot more free flowing thoughts for them, right? And they're going to be much more transparent with their opinions and thoughts with you. So because a co-working space or a managed office space provides such areas, they call it collab space or they call it recreational space and all that. So here is where you could actually have these conversations, and across hierarchy within the company, people can talk to each other, brush shoulders, and get to know each other better, right? And that aids in a big way in building the company culture. So sum and substance, I think it's probably linking company culture to the complexity of building a company culture, to whether you take up a co-working space or a managed office space, or you have your own building with a board on top of it. I think it's probably a moot point to discuss over that. Identity of a company is one thing, company of the culture is another thing, right? So if you're talking about identity and just the values, the company values on the sticker on the wall, if that is company culture, sorry, I mean, you've gotten it wrong, right? That sticker on the wall is only re-emphasizing, or it's a reference point for somebody to look at it and then reimagine or kind of reinforce those thoughts, right? That's not company culture. So it's how you behave in front of the team, and how each team member, each leader, how they interact, and what are the practices that are followed, the rituals that are followed. That's what brings company culture. So you could do that with or without the sticker on the wall. But with managed offices, you could still have the sticker on the wall. So if sticker on the wall is absolutely important, you could still get that done in a managed office space. In summary, go with an open thought of building your company culture. There's much more to building a company culture than the physical space. You can build it with or without four walls, and it's the practices that matter. It's how you do it, and whether you're able to set an example to the teams, and the rituals that you follow is what is going to set company culture. And you can do an amazing job of this, building a real company with real company culture, irrespective of where they are. So definitely in a co-working space and managed office space, you could build an amazing company. And I've seen quite a few of these companies do a great job in doing that, right? And I've seen companies that have had sprawling campuses but have, for lack of better words, bad company culture, right? And I've seen companies that have built in a nook in a co-working space and have amazing company culture. So let's de-link these two topics and look at it objectively, and take culture as de-link it from the physicality of the office space.